Listen, of course you can do it. I've made all the arrangements. I mean it, Charlie. You'll be terrific. All right, why don't you meet me here and we'll go together? Fine. Don't worry about a thing. You're going to be perfect. All right, bye.
Charlie, who?
I didn't hear you come in.
I sort of snuck up on you. What's going on, you little cutie?
Yeah.
Oh, good. You're dressed to go out.
Well, of course, you said you'd pick me up, didn't you?
That's right. You promised to help me shop for my trousseau.
Right, and I'm ready. Why are you so surprised?
Well, under the circumstances, I was afraid you might cancel out.
Under what circumstances?
Your problem. Or isn't there a problem any longer? Are things all squared away with Luke and Robert?
If we may come to order, please. Let the record show that a special committee of the City Council is convened to hear argument regarding a permit for a gambling club proposed near the waterfront development project. Mr. Brock, as the petitioner in this matter, are you ready to proceed?
Mr. Mayor, I would ask you to please indulge me for a few more minutes. I cannot proceed until my associate has arrived.
Mr. Mayor, we were not informed prior to this that Mr. Brock was to have an associate present at this hearing.
Nor was the council, Commissioner. If I may ask, Mr. Brock, who is your associate in this matter?
I think he'll answer it himself, Mr. Mayor. Much better than me. He's arrived.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. My apologies to everyone.
Let the record show that Luke Spencer is joining Mr. Brock on behalf of the petition before this committee. Now we can proceed.
So, who's Charlie?
Oh, you'll find out soon enough. We're meeting here and we're going over to the hospital together.
What did you mean when you said, of course you can do it? Do what?
I need help putting the case histories together for my lectures. You know the trouble I've had.
Oh, yeah.
All right. I need a really sharp medical student. Charlie's it. Charlie is perfect.
Oh.
Full-time scholarship, but, you know, kids these days, sometimes they need a little help, even though they have scholarships.
Yeah, I know.
Well, things add up. The cost of books and lab fees, it gets expensive.
Uh-huh. So, you are coming to Charlie's rescue.
Lesley, no one deserves this any more than Charlie does. You'll see. Why you look so puzzled?
No, I wasn't puzzled at all. I was just standing here and thinking, gee, it sounds like he's found a new crusade. And it's not a big deal, sweetheart, but you know, when you set out to help somebody, you do get what you might call carried away.
I am not carried away, and I think this situation will speak very clearly for itself.
It will.
Yes. I have not seen a student of this caliber in a long time. I mean, brilliant and a real flair and enthusiasm for medicine. You'll see yourself. Hi.
Hi. I hope I didn't keep you waiting.
No, not at all. I want you to meet my wife, Dr. Lesley Weber. Charlie, Lesley Weber.
You're Charlie.
Yes, doctor. And this is a real honor, believe me.
Thank you. Charlie. As in what?
A lot of people get confused about that.
Understandably.
Actually, my real name is Charlene, but I've been called Charlie ever since I was just a kid.
Ah.
Well, it's less formal, and I like that. I hope that Dr. Weber has told you how grateful I am.
For what?
Well, for the part-time job, helping him at his office. I hardly need tell you that just being at one of Dr. Weber's lectures is a thrill.
Really?
Well, the whole class thinks that he's the most inspiring teacher we've ever had.
Really?
And he really cares. You know, we all know that. Anyway, I'm really excited about working in his office, and I just can't thank him enough.
Can we stop just for one moment? I'm beginning to blush all over. Lesley, In actuality, I'm the one who should feel very fortunate and very lucky here.
Fortunate, sweetheart, in what way?
But I've got somebody as sharp, as brilliant as she is to help me. Oh, I want to get going right away because I want to get her acclimated and settled at the hospital before I start that busy day of mine, okay?
Oh, speaking of your day, don't forget, we have a date for lunch.
Yeah, 1 o'clock, after.
Right.
Okay. Shall we?
I can hardly wait.
Okay.
It's been a real pleasure, Dr. Weber.
Thank you. It's just been wonderful for me, too.
Honestly, Doctor, I just can't thank you enough.
Oh, bye.
Bye. So that's about where things stand at the moment.
In other words, you really haven't resolved anything at all.
Not really. But I have decided one thing. I can't stop living just because my heart feels like a torn pocket.
I'm glad you've decided that, at least. When you talked to Luke, did he at least understand why things happened the way they did?
It's not an easy question to answer, Celia. As you know, Luke and I didn't even meet under what you would call ordinary circumstances. Far from it. I arranged that we would meet on the mountain. It was all part of the oil scam.
Yes, but Holly, that's ancient history.
That's just my point. It's not the past to Luke.
But he knows that you ended up loving him.
Yes, but because of our beginnings, he's never really trusted me. I don't know, maybe that's why he didn't come down from the mountain when he was ill.
Oh, I'm not sure I agree with that.
But look at it from his point of view. When he did come home, what did he find? Robert and I were married.
Well, I'm sure he understood why you had to marry Robert. I mean, with the threat of deportation and all.
Yes, Luke understood that part. But what he didn't understand, and probably he'll never understand, is that I accepted his death.
Well, so did everyone else.
Yes, but I not only married Robert, I found him warm and kind and loving. And I needed that. I wanted that so desperately.
It all comes out to the same thing, doesn't it?
Comes down to what?
The bedroom. How do you feel about Luke right now? Do you know?
Yes, I know. I love him. I'll always love him. But at the same time, I'm feeling angry and hurt.
Why?
Because he won't understand the pain I went through and my loyalty and affection for Robert.
I'm not sure any man ever could, really. So, what are you going to do? Have you thought about that?
Oh, constantly. All I know is I'm just totally confused about how I feel, what I should do. Things are so much up in the air, I couldn't possibly make a decision at the moment.
Things are up in the air?
Yes, Luke is staying with Tiffany. That makes me think that he's probably going to be staying for a while in Port Charles.
Probably.
And that means that sooner or later, we're just going to have to confront him with this.
Yes, I'd say that's inevitable. What in the meantime?
I'm just going to have to keep on trying to sort out my feelings. I suppose.
Anything else?
I'm going to have to go on living, one day at a time.
Next, if I may remind the council committee that the casino we propose will be part of a first-class restaurant on the very site of the up-and-coming exposition.
Why do you feel that the location is relevant, Mr. Brock?
The location is very relevant because a restaurant that has gourmet dining and a gambling casino will attract a very sophisticated cosmopolitan crowd, particularly the rich international set.
I don't quite follow your train of thought.
My point is, sir, that Port Charles is not known internationally. It is an international center. It's precisely the international people that we want for the exposition. We all agree on this. Therefore, in order for them to come, we need a magnet. My restaurant and casino will be that magnet. I thank you very much.
Is there anything further?
Yes.
Luke Spencer.
Your Honor, my colleague, Mr. Brock, and I would like to remind the committee that there will, of course, be taxes levied on the restaurant and on the profits of the casino. Money that will go, of course, directly into the city budget for education, health care, social services, money for the elderly, money for the poor, and I'm sure I don't need to remind you that the city sorely needs it.
I knew he'd bring that up.
Do you think these funds will be substantial?
Now, I think that's putting it mildly. May I make one more?
The floor is yours.
We are not asking this committee to go against the wishes of the people of Port Charles in any way.
But, Mr. Spencer, that's exactly what you are asking. Why, there are many voters in my district alone who are definitely opposed to gambling.
Yes, and they should be heard. And that's why we're asking for a permit to allow gambling only during the duration of the exposition. At the end of that time, we suggest a referendum in the election so the voters may decide themselves.
Well, thank you for a very strong and attractive argument. Mr. Commissioner.
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you wish to say anything in opposition to what we've just heard?
I certainly do. Mr. Mayor, members of the special committee, I intend to say plenty.
Take a look at this. Could you die? Oh, Mary, you're a genius. It's absolutely perfect. I don't even you need to try it on. Put it on the pile. Holly, isn't it gorgeous?
Yes, it's beautiful, Celia. And if you think that's a knockout, just wait. I've got some new things in the back that will make you swoon. Excuse me.
Holly, are you sure you want to go through with this? I mean, I know it's very hard to get into the spirit of it.
Oh, it's good for me, really. It keeps my mind off my problems.
I could say the same thing.
Oh?
Yes, I mean, Jimmy Lee. Oh, no, don't misunderstand me. I know I was just plain stupid to chase after him when I have such a warm, wonderful man as Grant.
I think I hear a but coming.
I get such a certain feeling whenever I think about Jimmy Lee. He is quite a man.
He's very attractive.
Very. But I will not let anyone jeopardize what I have with Grant. Not Jimmy Lee, not anyone.
Well, good. If you've solved that dilemma, I'm glad for you. I'm happy for you.
Yes, I'm happy too, darn it. I wish you were, though. I can't even get you to smile. You sure you don't want to stop this? I can shop any day.
Oh, no.
Oh, darlings, how wonderful to see the both of you. Still finding your Delphina, darling. It's Tiffany. Rise and shine.
Tiffany, no, Delphina's not here. Mary is, though, and she's in the back. How are you, Tiffany?
Oh, well, actually, I'm ready and raring to go, darling. I am having dinner next week in Manhattan with my adorable Senator Drake, and I have to look ravishing. How are you, Holly?
Oh, I'm fine.
Really? You look rather tired.
No, I'm fine. And how are you?
Me? I haven't stopped to draw a breath since my first date in 5th grade. Or that 6th grade? Oh, well, it doesn't really matter, does it?
Still, it must be hard work having a roommate. How is that going?
Holly, darling, we're friends. Why don't you just come right in and ask me what it is you really want to know?
I was just asking a polite question.
Well, I'll answer it. Luke is terrible.
Why'd you say that?
Because it's true. And obviously, looking at you, you're not any better. I mean, you've got rings under your eyes.
Why is Luke terrible?
Well, he just is. And if you ask me, you're both silly about the whole thing.
You mean me?
I mean the both of you. You're keeping away from each other. You're just sitting around agonizing all on your own, and I think it's absolutely ridiculous.
Well, what do you suggest we do?
What any two intelligent adults would do. You sit down quietly, face to face, and talk it out.
That's so easy to say, Tiffany.
No, Holly, it is not that easy to say, but I say it because I love both of you. You and Luke are not doing yourselves any good.
Oh, I know that.
Well, I hope you know something else also.
What?
You're not doing Robert any good either.
Right, my next point is all too clear, so I won't bother expanding upon it. It's been proven since time immemorial that gambling attracts a criminal element. You establish a licensed casino on the waterfront, you'll invite that element. Also, you'll open the doors for that element into Port Charles.
Commissioner, you yourself have indicated you've made great progress in ridding the waterfront of the criminal element.
That's very true. As a matter of fact, we've cleaned up the worst of it. As you're all well aware, Augie and Anthony Hand are now dead, and the power of the New York mobs has been broken. In short, the waterfront is clean, and I would like it to stay that way.
Mr. Commissioner, I note that Scott Baldwin is allied with you in your opposition to the gambling license.
Yeah, that's right.
Yet, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Baldwin, you yourself had ties to Hand as well as to Augie.
Well, I did, but that was in the past.
And didn't you yourself originally interest Mr. Brock in the waterfront development?
I did.
If I might address this myself. Mr. Brock here came to us with impeccable credentials from Senator Drake. And I endorsed his participation in wishing to establish a first-class restaurant here. I still do. But I take considerable exception to his desire to establish and legalize gambling.
Do you have anything to say in rebuttal to Mr. Spencer's assurances that the city would derive considerable tax revenue from the casino?
I certainly do. Mr. Spencer's assertion that certain tax monies would be derived is absolutely correct. But his assertion that that money would be spent for the poor, the needy, or anybody else is incorrect.
Why?
Because Mr. Spencer knows, as do I, that any money that the casino brings in will be used to fight the criminal element that it also brings in. Look, I assure you members of the committee, the truth here is all too painfully clear. Gambling leads to crime. Don't open the doors.
Thank you, Commissioner. Now that we have heard both sides, I think the committee will go into executive session and take a vote.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Brock?
We have one more person to speak on behalf of the casino.
You and Mr. Spencer have both had ample opportunity, and I see no one else here.
If I may. Our speaker is Mrs. Steve Hardy.
I believe we all know Mrs. Hardy, and while her appearance before this committee was not on the agenda, I'm sure we're all eager to hear what she has to say.
Well, thank you, John.
Mrs. Hardy?
I don't know. Some of you may know that I'm serving as president of the Historical Landmark Society of Port Charles, and so I am here in that capacity today. First of all, I would like to state that I share your determination to preserve the Greenwood House because of its historical significance to this community. I have with me the original plans of the Greenwood House. Luke, maybe you could explain them, would you?
Certainly, Mrs. Hardy. To summarize, these plans will prove that in its original form, the Greenwood House in the 1890s was a celebrated and very famous gambling casino, which means in order to restore it to its original form, it must contain a casino. Now, I must, in all honesty, tell the committee that originally Mrs. Hardy had some reservations about the gambling casino, but I believe that she has changed her mind. Is that correct?
Yes, it certainly is.
Why, Mrs. Hardy?
Well, I'll tell you, Mr. Brock explained the sizable revenues this city could receive from taxing a gambling casino, and Luke has shown me some very impressive figures about some other cities.
Well, what kind of figures?
Luke?
Certainly. We have here information regarding areas of the country where gambling is permitted. Revenues that go directly to the cities of Las Vegas, Reno, Lake Tahoe, Atlantic City, Miami, where tax income from races and other sporting events goes directly to the city, and others, approximately 50 communities where gambling is permitted.
And they all receive monies from gambling.
That is putting it mildly, sir.
May I add one more thing?
Go right ahead.
First of all, I think this committee should know that Mr. Brock has spent quite a bit of time with the Historical Society, and he has assured us that the gambling at the Greenwood House would be under the strictest control. Now, that was a very persuasive factor in our vote.
Oh, the Landmark Society has taken a vote on this matter?
We have indeed. We have voted unanimously to grant Mr. Brock the permit for the gambling, and I am here on record to urge you all to do the same.
You voted unanimously because you're satisfied that the control will be what it should be.
That was one reason, yes.
If I may summarize, not only was Mrs. Hardy and her committee satisfied that there would be strict controls, but they were also quite impressed with the fact that revenue for the city of Port Charles could be generated to a great degree by taxes from a gambling casino.
That was very persuasive to us.
And may I remind you once again that we're only asking for a permit for the duration of the exposition. At the end of that time, we suggest that it's put on the ballot, allow the people to vote.
Well, thank you. Look, is there anything else?
I think we've argued our situation rather adequately.
I quite agree.
Thank you.
Mr. Commissioner, do you have anything further to say?
I've already stated my position. Strict controls or not, gambling attracts a criminal element. It mustn't happen here in Port Charles.
Well, thank you, Commissioner, very much. Now, if there's nothing further, this committee will retire into executive session. We will consider both sides of the argument, and we will let you know of our decision. This special committee of the City Council will resume the deliberations in my office. And thank you, everyone, for presenting us with your views.
Probably the most intelligent way to break this down would be by subject. That way, whatever lectures I have, all you're going to have to do is find the subject that most closely relates to the other.
I would be thrilled to do that, Dr. Weber.
You get excited about small things, don't you? Okay, this first stack will be the case histories of the patient.
Yes, sir.
Here we're going to have if they are subsequently admitted into the hospital, and then the last pile will be the post-surgery reports of all kinds, okay? You still with me?
Yes.
Good.
I just still can't believe it.
We've what?
Well, that you chose me to help you. It's like a dream come true, and I'll never be able to repay you.
You don't ever have to think of repaying me. No, maybe you can be a fine physician. Someday, and I'm sure you'll do that.
Thanks to you. Oh, I mean that. You know, if you hadn't offered me this part-time job, I don't know what I would have done. Oh, it's true I have a scholarship, but my parents can't afford to help me at all. And without this job, I don't think I could have made ends meet.
Charlie, anybody that has a medical aptitude like you do deserves the help. Deserves all the help you can get. And I have to be very frank. I've had my eye on you since the very first day that you started asking questions in the lecture hall.
Yeah? Really?
Yes. You're going to be a fine doctor. I guarantee you of that. And if someday in the future I can look back and say with pride that I helped her in some small way.
Oh, it's not a small way, Doctor. And I don't just mean a job. I mean being around you. Being so close to a man that I admire so much.
My patients are not going to admire me if I don't start on my round. So why don't you begin right here? Take my seat, please.
Okay.
And get to it. Oh, you have any questions, just hold them for me, and we'll go over them a little later, all right?
Gunderson, John A., age 64.
So that would have rheumatic pericarditis.
Did he have rheumatic fever? If I remember the text correctly, pericarditis occurs in 3 to 13% of rheumatic fever cases.
That's right on the nose.
Will I find your treatment of choice in here?
Yeah, it should be in the corresponding inpatient file.
Oh, could you take just a minute to show me, Doctor? I just want to make sure I get it right.
Sure, I think I can take a minute. Okay. Sorry. Gunderson, there we are. Okay. Now you should find everything right in there, and then when it comes to the... tell you what, I would say that probably you ought to do a cross-reference file. That way we could have the information of all three files right at our fingertips.
Oh, I will.
Good. You're going to find in here the diagnosis when he was admitted, and that should also correspond to the diagnosis after he left.
Wonder how much longer it's going to be.
I guess as long as it's going to be.
Yeah. Of course, you and I have a different idea what the decision should be. Kind of like the old days, huh, Luke?
Oh, how I've missed them.
Well, we've always had a different outlook on things.
Always will.
That's good. I'd hate to think that we ever agree on anything.
No problem, pal.
You know something? I've always hated you. Of course, when I heard you were dead, I felt a certain loss.
Oh, stop. You're breaking my heart.
Well, I didn't go completely to pieces now.
Good. Because as you can see, I'm very much alive.
Yeah, I've noticed.
Some things never change, do they, pal?
Oh, I don't know about that. You see, I've had a lot of time, and I've got things in perspective.
No kidding.
Oh, I mean, I don't see us taking vacations together. However, I think this town is big enough for both of us. What do you think?
I think it needs to get a lot bigger.
Well, I'm working on that. And nobody is going to stand in my way.
Nobody gonna stand in my way either. Excuse me.
I hope you can appreciate my concern. I never thought you'd go for a gambling casino. Now that you have, I've got to oppose it.
If we do get our license, I think you're going to change your mind.
I can't conceive of that.
Well, I can. Say we're operating, and those tax dollars start coming in. They're going to beef up your budget for your police department, right?
Yeah, I'll believe that when I see it.
Well, if you do see it beefed up, will you still be against gambling?
Absolutely. I opposed your petition. If you get a license, which I doubt, we're still going to be on opposite sides.
Oh, we're going to get our answer right now.
Thank you very much for waiting, and I won't prolong the committee's response. We've considered very carefully both sides of this question and have reached a decision. The committee has voted to grant Mr. Brock and Mr. Spencer a permit for gambling. Such permit to be in effect until the November elections. At that time, the measure will be put on the ballot in the form of a referendum, and the voters of Port Charles will make the final decision.
All right. Commissioner!
General Hospital will continue in a moment.